the candidates joining us tonight, and especially want to recognize that it is a major act of community service to step up to run for these positions, and want to thank the candidates for doing so. Serving on the school board has, for a school district of 22,000 students, is a challenging position that requires special skills. We hope to give voters tonight some insight into what our candidates would bring to the board. We've only scheduled an hour, so we probably won't have time for closing remarks. We will have opening remarks, of course. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for opening introduction. After that, we will ask a series of questions, of which each candidate will also have 2 minutes to answer. Candidates are not required to use the full 2 minutes, and I would just ask that if you are finished before your 2 minutes are up, if you just let me know, just say I'm finished. The timer is Tanya. She will let you know when you have 30 seconds left and when your time is up. Our forum tonight is being streamed on Facebook, hopefully. And so with that, let's begin with our candidates. And Angela, you are first to introduce yourself, please.
Here. Thanks.
You might have to turn that over.
Perfect, thank you. Good evening, thank you everybody for coming. My name is Angela Lema. I am running for school board in District E. I came to the Grand Valley about 15 years ago to open a cosmetology school. So we've been doing that for about 15 years. During that time, most of our graduates, all 700 of them, and not all 700 of them, but out of the 700, many of them came from District 51, graduated District 51. And I can tell you that over the past few years, I've just seen a decline in their ability to come into our program ready in their math skills, their reading skills, their writing skills, ready to take on financial responsibilities with going on to further their education. And so looking into this, I thought, what can I do? How can I take what I know in my experience with these students and try to improve the test scores and overall their education that they're coming out of the school system with? In that process, I've spoken to a whole lot of teachers, and they are fantastic. They are so dedicated to their students, and they want the very best for their students. They also are very frustrated, and they don't feel that they have enough time to do the things that they really need to do with their students. So I would engage those teachers and really find out, they're the ones that are in the classroom with the kids day in and day out. I think they've got great ideas, and they're gonna know how to better get their education improved. Talked to a lot of teachers, parents, business people around town. They also really have a lot of passion for these kids to get that education to where it needs to be. They all need to hire. They want these kids to go on for further education. So as part of your District 51 school board, I will do everything that I can to work with teachers, parents, and the community to make sure that these kids get the quality education that they deserve. Again, Angela Lema, running in District E. And just in time.
David, you have 2 minutes for introduction.
It won't take that long. Good afternoon, good evening. My name is David Combs, and I am also running for a school board District E position. I've lived in the Valley since 1980. I have 4 children who've graduated from D51 schools. We've been fortunate enough where they've all become college graduates. I currently have 3 children now in D51 schools, and this position is really close to me simply because not only the involvement that I have in D51, and I also have a daughter who's a teacher at D51. Similar to Angela, I've spoken with teachers over the last 40 years. I've refereed basketball and also high school and college volleyball. And some of my fellow officials have been teachers, administrators, principals. And so you kind of get an insight from them when you're speaking to them one-on-one, when you're talking about what goes on in the system. Fortunately for me, I've been able to literally live D51 because of my involvement with my kids. One of the unfortunate things is we believe that District 51 it has a long way to go, but it really doesn't. District 51 is one of the things that has occurred, if we go back a little bit and we look at last year, District 51 was one of the few schools of this size that remained open. They had in-person learning. I talked to my brother, who was also a teacher in Minneapolis, and they had distance learning, and it was very problematic. I believe that I have the knowledge, I have the experience, I'm involved in the community in multiple facets. So I believe because of that, that I am the individual that is probably the most qualified for the District E position. Thank you.
Trish? Please.
Good evening, and thank you everybody for coming out. We really appreciate it. My name is Trish Mahre, and currently on the school board for District 51, and I'm running to retain my seat in the upcoming November election. I'm a longtime prosecutor, basically my whole career. I've been working in Mesa County for many, many years. My specialty is crimes involving children and working on issues regarding juveniles who are in court. Day in and day out, I breathe what happens to kids, whether kids are victimized, whether kids become offenders. I can see the gaps in our system and the processes and many organizations who are trying to come together to figure out how we can do better for kids. As a prosecutor working under Pete Hautzinger and Dan Rubenstein, I would say values that I have learned relate to transparency, accountability, and safety. Those are things I think about day in and day out as a prosecutor, and how we do our business. And those are the values that I would say I bring to the school board and the things that I care about. I think they're not just, I think they're things that don't pass in and out of who you are, one day at a time. They're just values that you bring day in and day out. I maybe can beat David. I've lived and breathed the school district since I was a kid. I'm a District 51 kid. I attended Pomona West and Grand Junction High School. We moved back here after I went to law school out in the state of Washington to return here to raise our kids in the school district. My kids have been raised through the school district. I've been able to experience it as a student, as a parent, and as a prosecutor, an outside person, about how the school district and education touches the lives of kids. Separate and apart from that, I have just over a year of experience on the school board with an outside set of eyes. I was not raised within the school district as a professional person, but I'm able to bring my skills as an attorney, my outside perspective as a prosecutor on how we can improve the schools. I have a passion and a dedication for kids, and I think if any one of you looks up my background, that's what you'll see. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea? Please.
Well, thank you everybody for having us tonight. We appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. My name is Andrea Haitz. I am a native of Grand Junction. I went to, Fruitvale, Chatfield, Nisley. We moved around a lot when I was a kid. I went to Bookcliff Middle School and graduated from Central High School. And then went on to Mesa State, which is now CMU. I am personally vested in the school district here. I do have 2 kids in a District 51 school, so I'm vested in seeing their education become better and see them succeed along with others. I sat on the Juniper Ridge Community School Board for 6 years. During that time, we went from turnaround status to performance level, and that was done with a collaboration between the administration, the board, and the teachers. And we just figured out what would work best for our students to achieve well during that time. We also built a school on a budget. We did work collaboratively with D51, which was a great experience, in just being able to just figure out how the district and the charter school could work together. And we were transparent and open with our community and our teachers, and we really brought everybody in together to work on that school, which was really amazing. I am really just concerned about our teacher shortage currently, and really wanting to make sure that we have a good basis moving forward with our education in the future. I think it's time to look at things that worked in the past that were really successful, and it's time to look forward to see things that maybe we can do better. Again, Andrea Haitz for District C.
Thank you. Austin?
Thank you all for having me this evening. Again, my name is Austin DeWitt. I am also running for District C. I graduated from Fruita Monument High School in 2019, so I am a product of District 51. I also attended Orchard Mesa Middle School, Mount Garfield Middle School, and Dos Rios Elementary. I have a mom who works in the district as a PE teacher. I also have 2 siblings in the district, one at Orchard Mesa and one at Central High School. I do a lot of volunteer work here in the community, but first, I want to bring into the district updated ICAP, which is Individual Career Assess Academic Plans. I want to bring in more resources for career and college education training. From personal experiences, I can tell you that kids are more likely to learn in a career training because it's more hands-on and they are more engaged rather than sitting in a classroom reading out of a textbook. I want to bring back more in-person learning and face-to-face without having the risk of being sent home without the risk of being sent home because of allergies. I've seen several kids, they sniffle because they have an allergy and they get sent home for 10 days to be tested. And I want to bring back that because that creates a learning gap. Again, my name is Austin and I'm running for District C.
Well,
good evening. My name is Will Jones. I'm running for School Board District D. I've been in the Valley for about 25 to 30 years. I also graduated from Central High School, but in Cheyenne, Wyoming. I am a coach at Central High School, currently here in Grand Junction now. I've been in the system with, coaching with kids for over 20 years. I moved to Grand Junction playing semi-pro football, and I took over coaching, and I started coaching little kids back then, and I've enjoyed it, and I've been working in the system since. I do work for the district when it comes to coaching, so that's the aspect that I've been in D51. I have 8 beautiful kids that go to school. I have 4 that are in the school systems right, 3, I'm sorry, that are in the school systems right now. I have a daughter who also graduated from here and went to Oregon and graduated with her master's in teaching, so she's a teacher out there now. So in the time that my 8-year-old daughter, who goes to Pomona Elementary, she's been there for a couple years, and we love the school system there. But in the time there, we've seen a drastic change in kids. We've seen a drastic change in the system. We think that the parents' involvement has gone down. We spend too much time yelling and talking and not trying to focus on our kids. We don't talk about what's important anymore. We've gotten away from that. Our parents don't feel like they have any backing. The teachers don't feel like they have any backing, and the kids don't feel like they have any say-so. We've gone away from education that should be taught and going to an education that has no business being taught. So what I bring to the board is I have that sense of involvement. I like to talk. I like to talk to people. I know how to solve problems. If I don't know the answer, we'll solve it together. But we need to bring our community back together the way it was and get this thing going the right way. So once again, Will Jones, District D.
Thank you all. Nick Allan, running for District D as well. Public education has always been a major part of my life, whether as a student, a former teacher and coach, and now hopefully to be a school board member. The thing that concerns me most right now is our teacher shortage, and that is leading into extremely high classroom sizes. As a former teacher, I remember having class sizes of 35, 40 kids, and we just know that we can't get to the students that need it most. And I'm very worried about those kids, and that's the main reason why I'm running, is because I know that we can do a better job if we support our teachers. If we start at where the learning happens, and that's right at the classroom, and we focus our resources there. And that's how we can support every student. We need to make sure that we have our mental health supports. We need to make sure that we have our special needs supports. I heard just the other day we have over 11 positions for special ed that aren't filled. So we are overfilling our classrooms with those students that need the most resources. And I know this isn't going to be an easy task. I know that this community really needs to take this step forward, and we got to do it together, and that comes from a board that listens before it makes its decisions. And so what I promise to you is before a decision is made, I will go out to the community beyond the school board, interact like we're doing tonight, get your questions, and make sure that you get answers. Thank you so much, Nick, running for District D.
thank you all. question, and this will go first to David. The Colorado Public School funding mechanism doesn't allow schools to stockpile money for future needs. Therefore, we need to go to the taxpayers every time we need a large capital expenditure, which we're doing now. D51 is going to have huge needs in the future for remodels and replacements on aging buildings that doesn't even consider new buildings we may need for growth in the valley. What do you think we should do financially to address our future building needs?
It's ironic that you're asking that question. There was an article in the Sentinel yesterday. Most of our schools are on the average of about 45 years old. One is having attention paid to it, and that's Grand Junction High School. And the reason why it's having the attention paid to it that it is simply because there are deplorable learning conditions there. What we have to do, what we have to realize is one of the things that is occurring is our valley is expanding. And what that means is more people are moving in. And as people move in, they bring their children with them. And the additional children means additional education opportunities. What we have to realize is that we all have to be a community when it comes to paying for education. A lot of individuals out there, they look at it in terms of, well, I don't have children in the education system. Thus, there's no need for me to support any tax initiative. And as difficult as that sounds, that is one of the ways that we are going to make up that deficit. And it's not just an educational deficit, it's also a facility deficit. When we're bringing new businesses in, typically they come in with families. A family wants to know that their child or their children will have an adequate educational facility. And it's up to all of us, even us who do not have children, to fulfill that need. When you talk in terms of taxes, you talk in terms of where the money is going to go. But with that being said, there has to be transparency in terms of where those money goes, who's going to be in charge of those monies, and how long they'll last. I think that's probably one of the bigger challenges that the district faces as far as the future.
Thank you. Trish?
Thank you. So inspiring and safe schools are necessary. Right now, the school board has drafted a bond to pass a new Grand Junction High School bond. We did not pass that bond in 2019. We listened to what the taxpayers had difficulties digesting with that bond, and we have cured it this time to be a single project that any extra money can only be used to pay the debt on that school. No other project can be used. We are trying to demonstrate transparency, accountability, and safety, all of those things, by not only crafting something that is more viable by our public and our taxpayers, and to know that we can build one school at a time. How many of you participated in the listening when we adjusted boundaries this last year? Not very many people. So when we're asked about where else do we build schools, part of those conversations are demographers. So the school district hires demographers. We look for where the population is going to be, and every candidate here should have been participating in that, because it's not only about building inspiring and safe schools, it's about figuring out where the data is on the population and where the growth is going to be. So it's not just an issue of rebuilding schools, it's targeting where population is going to be, and that's where we use a demographer. We're hoping to take this one step at a time. We're hoping to demonstrate transparency, accountability, and safety with the single project right now with Grand Junction High School, and then move forward for the next schools that need work. Our out loud conversations have related to Central High School. We just invested a fair amount of money into Fruita Monument High School. Is my time up? Nope. Okay, thank you. And we're trying to demonstrate that transparency, and I get why we need to do that. I was an outsider coming to the board a year ago. I was a parent who saw the bond fail in 2019. I saw what appeared to be financial hiccups, mishaps, and that's what I want to do to demonstrate our transparency, accountability, and safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea?
Great question. So I think a lot of what's been said is obviously valid. There's an area we need to create trust with our community is why did the school get so bad? Where was our maintenance plan? And so the other thing is yes, Grand Junction does need a lot of work or replaced. And I toured there last week and got to see, it's very choppy, and had a chance to kind of see the things that are working great and obviously the things that need help. So, but we also have to commit to our community that we're gonna build these buildings, and then we're gonna have a plan to maintain them so that we don't have to level the building every so many years and then ask the taxpayer for more money. So we also need to make sure that we have a plan as far as that goes. And then we do need to look at where I think we need an additional high school here in the valley. They are basically bursting at the seams. And so there's a lot of ways that we need to look at between elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. We can't do that though if we don't have enough teachers to staff those buildings. And so there's a lot of different facets that we have to look at when it comes to this. And then I think other ways of bringing money in would be looking at like El Paso County, where they passed a mill levy that is correlated to students' performance. And so if we have mill levy money that can come in and go right to our teachers for our students' performance, that frees up other monies that the district can use to help with their buildings. So I think we have a lot of opportunities to look for solutions, and that's what I think we can start with.
Thank you. Austin?
First and foremost, safety and security are the #1 priority of a school board candidate. Each student needs to be able to learn in a safe environment without the problems that are arising. Many of you have probably heard by now that the gym has to be vacated because the gym is just not usable at Grand Junction, and that is outrageous because now we have to look at where are we going to put other students in athletics. From there, I think we need to focus on the rest of the building. I think we need to focus on safety and security and keep these kids in the environment they're in. And still, at the same time, we need to, like Andrea has said, look at opening a new high school to alleviate some of that tension within the buildings. And again, we do need to have a maintenance plan to keep these places safe, secure and safe. Because if we don't have this maintenance plan, here in another 30 years, we're going to be demolishing this building. And that is completely outrageous that we do not take care of the buildings as they are. I think we do look at raises taxes, but I think we also need to look at other avenues of receiving funding for buildings rather than putting it all on the burden of taxpayers.
Thank you. Will?
So basically, we hear a lot of talk about, maintenance plans and things like that, and they're absolutely correct. We have to have a lot of transparency. You have to know where every dime goes. You have to know where every nail has to be, where, every bit of dirt comes from, every little brick in the wall. You have to be, transparent about it, and the taxpayers have to know that. I think it'd be great if we could come in under budget and say we saved this much money and put it back into the plan. It would be great. Where we failed in past ones is we went and got all these wonderful things and all these beautiful things above and beyond that didn't really need to be in the school. And I think that we went from getting the basics to get a kid the education to trying to get the Taj Mahal built. I think that we need to just be transparent and be honest and tell everybody where every cent goes, every dime goes, every penny, every blade of grass, everything. And come in and go out and get the bids and get bids for not necessarily who has the best reputation, but somebody who has a good reputation and can go through and can get it done under budget. And I just think if we do that in a safe manner and come under budget, and things will work itself out.
Thank you. Nick?
So currently our school district has over $300 million worth of projects, capital projects in need. It's got to start with our maintenance right now. That's been cut through several boards to try and trim down the budget. We have to focus on making sure we can maintain the buildings we have now. Obviously, Grand Junction has to be rebuilt. I've taught in that school. It is falling apart and our kids are in danger, and so we need to replace that school. I also had the opportunity to teach in Orchard Mesa Middle before they had a new school and after. And the look on those kids' faces when they got into the school and the type of attitude that they had when they saw the community invested in them was night and day. They know when a community steps up like we are asking all of us to do as taxpayers right now with this upcoming bond, to make sure that our kids have a productive place where they feel safe, where they feel welcomed and cared for. And in regards to bringing in extra money, you know, we have a good relationship with the state in regard to the BEST grant. That's the marijuana money that we can get. Part of that's going to Grand Junction. We need to make sure that we take care of the money that's given to us, and we go out to the community, make sure that we back up what we have said we're gonna do, prove to that. I think the Junction plan is way better than 2 years ago, because that money that is raised will go right back into paying down that debt. And that's what the taxpayer has asked for, and that's what they're doing. And I think that's how we can continue to move forward and make sure that our district is keeping up pace.
Thank you. Angela?
I can probably do it without it, but let's have a voice at the end of this, thanks. So while I agree with everybody, we need a new Grand Junction High School, and I would just like to put out there that I've checked in with some experts, and they just think that the bond, the way it was written and everything, is very, very good. It's probably the best we've seen. I think that will put the taxpayers' mind at ease a little bit as we move forward. I think we have to have a board that is willing to stop the buck right here. Enough passing problems on to the next board or the next generations to try to fix it. Maintenance is going to be a huge thing. We have facilities that are in terrible shape. And I do see, I agree with Nick, it shows that these kids need to see that their community is invested in them and is willing to step up and make sure that they have a safe, productive place to go to school. At the end of the day, though, we've also got to turn out a quality education for these kids. I mean, for them to have for us to have the outcomes that we have in District 51 right now is just ridiculous. I mean, you can't tell me that our kids aren't smart enough to do better than this. So we gotta dig in next and find out, what do we have to do as a board to increase the education, the quality of the education, and make sure that these kids are getting through our district with the skills that they need to go on to college, to go on to trades education, and to go on into adult life. And I think when we show the taxpayers that, I think when we show them the outcome that we're doing the job that we were set out to do, which is provide a quality foundational education for our kids, I think that taxpayers will surprise everyone and be willing to step up a bit more. And again, that will help us get better teachers. We'll continue to raise that level of education.
Thank you. So us old timers all grew up with the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? To help voters understand candidates' values and priorities, can you detail your views about what we should teach beyond the 3 R's and what subjects should be excluded? For example, should evolution be taught or current events be included in classes? Trish, we'll start with you.
So I graduated from District 51. I've seen my kids graduate from District 51, nieces graduate from District 51. A lot of our kids receive quality education. A lot of our kids move on to college and other things. We need to be looking at other career tracks that may not mean university for everybody, that somebody is tech ready, workforce ready, things like that. Some of those pathways have already been formed by District 51 with partnerships with local businesses, as well as CMU and WCCC. I don't know that there's any particular classes or curriculums that I would cut right now. My experience with classrooms are primarily through my kids and watching my kids' friends graduate from the school, so I can't think of any classes that I would touch. Every time we talk about student population, part of student population is keeping all the robust programming in schools. So when we adjusted school boundaries this past year, we did not want to see Grand Junction High School lose robust programming because we've lost student population. So that student movement was largely based on the need to keep robust programming. I have kids who graduated in political science and theater. I have a child who's graduating in engineering with a minor sort of in jazz piano. I value the arts. I love music, art, theater. So I think kids need to be well-rounded. I think kids need to be well-rounded, whether they're moving to a university, whether they're moving to a tech industry, or heading to the military. I have a son who's gonna branch into the Army this next year out of college. So I think we need to be pulling for all kids, not any one segment. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea?
Great question. So obviously the fundamentals, reading or English language arts, reading, math, science, and history are important. I think we've unfortunately cut programs such as physical education, some music and arts, which I think is sad to see. I think getting back to some form of home economics, tech ed, or shop at the middle school level, or partnering with the community at those would be really good. I think those classes teach a lot of character development for kids, and I think it starts to open up their interest in maybe other things. Sometimes kids only go to school to go to those classes, and then they put up with going for history and math. And so I think we need to look at some avenues like that as well at the middle school level. I do think, I don't know that there's anything I would take away from school right now. I think current events could be in a civics class. I think if we start getting outside of that, we start taking away precious time from learning in class. And so there's clubs and extracurricular activities that kids can be involved in if they're interested in, I think current political events. And unfortunately, those things have become so divisive that they just don't belong too much in the classroom because it's taking away from valuable teaching time that our teachers need. So I think making sure that we look at classes outside of those like home ec, tech ed, arts, and PE. Especially we need to bring back adaptive PE for our special education kids. I've heard from many teachers that they are sad that we don't have what we used to, because that was a real resource for them, are some things that we need to look at bringing back.
Thank you. Austin?
For starters, I think we need to keep the basic core classes, history, math, reading, science, and of course the arts, because those are extremely important, and physical education. I do believe that we need to bring back more career education trainings, classrooms, such as welding and mechanical engineering and construction and all of these classes, because kids are more likely to respond to hands-on learning and instead of sitting behind a screen learning about more math. 37% of Colorado high school students have enrolled in at least one CTE class and have said that that is the reason they are attending school. 106,720 high school students have taken CTE classes and again have said that this is the reason they are attending high school. 34,535 of them go on to post-secondary. So in a way, I mean, this is training our kids for career training, college training, and it is equipping them with great life skills. 76% of these have been employed when they go into CTE. So I think we need to bring back these classes and teach them, different avenues and different routes instead of let's just stick them in a class learning about music theory, or let's stick them in a walking class. We bring these back and we can invest in our kids through different avenues rather than sending them straight to college or, sitting them in a classroom reading out of a textbook.
Thank you, Austin. Will?
So we talk about, the things that work for us. We know we have the basic math, reading, the writing, the science classes, the English classes, and those are classes we need, history. We need those classes. We talk about things that, we wouldn't get rid of. I mean, I definitely I wouldn't get rid of classes, but I want to see classes that, that teach our kids. We want, we cut, like we said, cut adaptive PE classes out. Those special ed kids need as much PE as anybody else. That's not fair to those guys. It's not fair to the teachers that, have to deal with these kids that, they get frustrated because they want to get some exercise out. We cut other programs out, auto tech. I'd love to see auto tech back. You know, there's where kids that want to have a trade and go do something, would be auto mechanic, can go out and learn to be, you know, a mechanic somewhere. Home economic classes and various classes. I know we have, you know, work classes with WCC, but we need classes back in school that, you know, get kids excited. You know, I know as a football player, I was excited to go to home ec and make, you know, cakes and aprons and things like that. You know, we gotta get these kids excited to be in school. You know, and we have to worry, you know, bring those things back. You know, I want kids to know that, you know, they can go to school and do anything they want to do. You know, and we have to provide that funding for them. We have to provide those classes for them. So that's what I do.
Thank you. Nick?
I loved home ec too. Mostly pizza though, that was my big jam. Yeah, you know, everyone's touched on it. As when I was able to substitute in this district for the past 3 years, I've been able to teach both in the work center as well as, you know, classes in all of our high schools. And the difference that I've seen with those kids compared to when we were taking apart lawnmowers versus sitting in math class, and the passion that they had. And they're like, I gotta do good in math class so I can go take, you know, my tech ed class. That's awesome, and we have to keep that. We have to even prioritize that. The goal of education is to make sure that our kids are college and career ready. And those are equal paths. One is not better than the other. They're both extremely important to make sure that our students can succeed in. One thing I want to touch on is we need a much stronger emphasis in this country and here on civic education. Honestly, most people don't know that they can vote in like a month. I only thought you could vote for president. No, there's so much more to this democracy, and it's very fragile. And we have to understand how important it is, and we have to instill that in our students to make sure that our country continues on. We are growing the next generation of Americans, and they need to know what this country is about, and that civic education is paramount to making sure that they can be good citizens and make sure that our country continues in the right direction.
Thank you. Angela?
The battle of the microphones tonight. So I would agree. I don't know that there's anything that I would cut necessarily, but we do have to find ways to improve those core skills. We have to improve in math. We have to improve in their reading skills, writing skills. I see at least 50 students a year that come from District 51, and I'm stunned at how much science background they just don't have. And we do actually quite a lot of chemistry, which surprises people in a lot of ways, but we have to get into that to keep people safe. And they really struggle with some of those things. So I would, first of all, always put the emphasis back on that. But if we don't make school more fun, it makes those other subjects that maybe somebody may be struggling a little bit with, it makes it a lot more difficult for them. So I love the idea of the tech programs. I mean, I took wood shop in high school. We built some fabulous furniture, and it kept a lot of kids in school. Auto shop, wood shop. Sometimes it's a home economic class. I would love to see those classes updated. You know, not just the same old thing, making cakes and pizzas, which are terrific, but, you know, teach them about budgeting. Teach them some budgeting skills and what it's going to take to run their own apartment or their own home, and know how much it's going to take to be able to do those things. These kids come out of school with so little personal finance understanding that it's quite stunning to me that you can graduate from high school and not have any personal finance training. The first thing we do with these kids is we ask them to go on to college or a trade school or something like that. And the first thing they get asked to do is sign their name on a line for a great big fat student loan that they don't understand. They don't understand interest. They don't understand how all of those things work. So I think it's imperative that we add those kinds of classes back into their core skills.
Thank you. David?
I think what you're talking about is, you're talking about the three silos of education, and that's reading, writing, and arithmetic. And what has to happen with those, they have to be expanded, okay? And there are multiple reasons why. One, when you look at students today, you look at financial literacy, and that's what one of the things Angela was speaking about. Financial literacy. What is financial literacy? It's the ability to pay your bills. It's the ability to understand interest. It's the ability to understand what monthly rent is. You also have to incorporate mental and physical health. Mesa County is ranked in the top 5 in student suicide. And when you talk in terms of, well, how do we get mental health into the school system? I was speaking with my daughter, who's a first grade teacher, and one of the first things that she does when students enter the room, and we're talking about first graders, kids who are 6 or 7 years old, she'll ask them, so, how was your day yesterday? We typically ask, how's your day today? And she will ask them, how was your day yesterday? To kind of get a feel for where these children are. I think those things, they can be incorporated into the school system. The other thing that is outside of the 3 silos of education is societal diversity. I mean, you look around this room. There's a diverse population that lives in the Grand Valley. There's a diverse population that lives in the state of Colorado. Societal diversity is something that is not going to go away. It can be included in part of the civics. However, what you have to do is you'll have to gauge that to your educational audience. And what I mean by that, you'll have to gauge that to the grade level. So I think there are multiple things that can be expanded. Probably the most important thing is to expand those 3 silos of education and have them adapted to the classroom that they are being taught in.
Thank you. So we've talked about curriculum, now we're going to talk about teachers a little bit. Ironically, when I grew up, I don't think any of my teachers through grade school had a degree. None. Now, teachers are frustrated and burned out from constant evaluation and scrutinization. It's hurting retention, it's hurting recruitment, and we are having teacher shortages in many parts of the state, some here. Should the school district back off teachers and let them do what they feel is right, or do we need to continue to monitor performance and results at a high level? And let's start that out with Andrea.
Great question. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of evaluations that we do with our teachers that we do need to reconsider. So for instance, in 3rd grade, those teachers almost spend the entire year doing assessments with children. That very little teaching sometimes seems to be accomplished because it's just one of those in-between years where they're trying to assess kids. And so I think that we need to figure out either better ways to assess, and then if a teacher's performance is based on those assessments, that can be a challenge for that teacher because then that's all that they've spent that whole year doing, and then that happens typically in like 8th grade and then a few other grades. So, and then if we get our kids in, high school, then you have PSAT and then SAT scores. And so we can't have our teachers only teaching to the test. That's not what teachers wanted to do. I mean, I don't know one teacher who was like, I want to be a teacher and I just want to teach to the test when I'm in school. They actually want to teach kids. And so I think there needs to be some autonomy of our teachers. Again, this is why I want teachers to be able to communicate with us about what curriculum they see as working, what's worked in the past, what's worked really well, what teachers have classrooms that are really successful, they've created great relationship with their students, and how can we replicate that? And then going to evaluations, I don't know all the evaluations that we currently do in the district. I'm slowly learning different things, like I said, for different performance levels of teachers. But in any career, you do need to have some sort of accountability and feedback so you know how to grow as a professional. And so I think there's some ways that we could do that that would hopefully be a win-win, that the teacher would feel supported and given good feedback for them to grow, but then also keeps them on track to make sure that we have a quality educator in the classroom so that we can have that accountability to our community and to our parents.
Thank you. Awesome.
Absolutely, we should back off of our teachers. They are in the classroom with the kids on a daily basis, and they know what these kids respond to, and they know how they learn and their learning style. They build unique relationships with each individual student, and they can, and again, if we lower class sizes, that'll help tremendously, because then they can have more one-on-one time and access to the students rather than a class full of 50 kids. And it's just not feasible for a kid to come in and have one-on-one time and understand a topic. I do think, like Andrea, that we do need to have about a yearly evaluation of teachers to make sure that they are you know, still doing their job effectively and making sure that students are still engaged. But again, teachers are in the classrooms daily with the students, and they understand what the student, how the student learns, and what style they use, and they build these unique relationships. And without these relationships, these teachers don't understand. I think that we do need to back off of all the testing as well, because the teachers teach the test and they're so stressed out by the fact that these tests demand the curriculum, and we just can't have that anymore.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you. So do we need to back off the teachers? Yes, but we do need to hold them accountable. So we do need to do some sort of evaluation for them. What happens now is the teachers have so many different things to do. We give them a curriculum, we tell them to teach this curriculum, they come out there and they start to teach the curriculum, and all of a sudden we come up and say, no, that's not gonna work, we're gonna give you something different to do. So they go and deal with the other curriculum, so they're frustrated because they can't learn the first one. Or they have the class sizes that are so big that they can't take time to teach these kids because one kid's acting out, and as we know, one kid's gonna act out, the rest of them are gonna be frustrated. So now you have a whole room of frustrated kids. So 25 to 30 frustrated kids in a classroom isn't helping the teacher at all. So we need to just make sure we have accountability for that and say, okay, hey, we're gonna help you out. We're gonna, come in and help you out in the classroom. We're gonna get you an aid. We're gonna give you something to, make you feel like you're warranted, like your teaching's been doing a good job. A lot of times they don't feel appreciated at all. They feel like we're just stepping all over them and give them all these things to do and just toss them away. And our teachers don't need to feel like that. As we know, a happy teacher's a happy classroom. So we definitely need to just, figure out a way to keep our teachers, participating, keep them happy, keep them like they feel supported, and I think we'll have a better result.
thank you. Nick?
I'm glad we're talking about testing, because that is super important. I was of the generation where we first started putting in standardized tests and high stakes testing, and it's terrible for our kids. It's absolutely terrible. The amount that we do in this district is even beyond where we need to be. I remember as a teacher, our Mahre was about to take a standardized test. As teachers, we knew exactly where he was. He didn't know how to read. We were working with him how to read. And then I had to put down a test of 50 pages, and he just broke into tears. Because of course, teachers know where their students are. And in regards to evaluation, that's the admin's job. We can't just have principals going in, doing an observation once, twice a year. You need to be evaluating your teachers and growing them, especially the first years. 50% of teachers will drop out in the first 3 years. We are already in an education crisis. So when we are able to get a new teacher into this district, we gotta treat them like gold. We gotta make sure that they stay. They need to have the resources, and that comes from building admin, supporting them, being in the classroom, helping them out, getting the assistance that they need to make sure that our kids can keep succeeding. And yeah, removing testing, of course, not good for mental health, not good for our teachers. We can evaluate on how they're doing in the classroom, and that's because we need to have people in the classroom seeing how they're doing.
Thank you. Angela?
Thank you. I love this question because when it comes to evaluations, there's kind of two ways of going at it. You either go at it to catch people doing something right or to catch people doing something wrong. And I think too often those evaluations are about catching people doing something wrong. And if we're going to grow teachers, which we absolutely have to do, we have a teacher shortage, we have a sub shortage, we've got all kinds of shortages. And we really need to make sure that what we're doing is trying to grow people in their careers and not find things that they're doing wrong. So again, I love evaluations that produce growth, produce positivity, give people some goals, give them some things to work on, help them with those, and make sure that they can achieve that growth. That's gonna make a happy teacher as well. So many of the teachers are frustrated, and it comes from several different areas. Number one is the class size. These teachers are trying to juggle 30 and sometimes a few more than 30 students in a class. And if you think about 30 middle school students, especially at that age group, it's gonna be like herding cats all day. They say that, they're trying to get this kid calmed down over here and this one going over here. And at the end of the day, they've got 20 minutes left to teach math. That came from a particular math teacher here in town a couple of days ago. So we've got to find ways to really support them and give them what they need. We need aides back in schools. We need to create a growth environment so that our teachers want to stay, they want to grow, and they want to encourage other people to get into the industry.
Well, I take just a different slant on it. I'm a business owner, and one of the things that we do evaluations for is to set up baselines. And that can be the same rationale for teacher evaluations. You set up a baseline for where this teacher is at, and typically that will reflect on the students also. I had a son that was on a IEP, which is an individual education plan from grade K through 12. And so each one of those teachers had to be specific with him in terms of he has a specific education plan that he's involved in. So each one of those teachers had to be really adept in educating him. Now, not all of them were, and it's simply because they didn't have the not necessarily the wherewithal or the knowledge to handle an individual that had learning disabilities. I think the evaluation process is a big assistance simply to use as a baseline. And it's just like Angela was saying, it's not to get an I got ya. It is so the teacher can understand this is where I am in my career. This is where I am in my teaching ability. I think the evaluation process is a necessary process. It's not a necessary evil, but it's necessary in the education process. And that's simply because we want teachers to be able to teach. We want teachers to know some of their weaknesses and their strengths. We want teachers to be able to be coached and counseled on getting better. Because once teachers get better, the education process improves, students get better.
Thank you. Trish.
Well, first of all, the teachers are the rock stars who make it happen. The teachers are in there day in and day out with kids who are inspiring to kids, keep them engaged in education. If the kids aren't in school, where are they at? Probably not a good place. That's what makes teachers the rock stars. They're the ones who inspire our kids day in and day out. It's the teachers who are the ones in the classroom forming positive relationships with kids. When we talk about assessments shouldn't be about testing for a test. Assessments or some form of standard should be about growth, right? We gotta meet every kid where they're at. My kid's not gonna be the same as your kid. We need to figure out where they're at and develop growth. Standards or assessments should be about growth, not about a test score. I had the opportunity to go out and visit schools in May when the school board was allowed back into the schools at the end of the last school year, and I got to be part of a little celebration at an elementary school where there was a kindergarten teacher who had done great data-driven results to show growth in his kindergartners. So when we talk about assessments, that's my view on what assessments should be used for. In terms of standards, the whole purpose of some kind of a standard is so that if my kid's at Pomona and my kid goes to Wingate, that it can step into another class and a teacher will know where they're going to be. If our kid leaves Mesa County School and goes into another school district, we want that child to be able to enter that school and that school to know where they're at. When our kids are graduating from high school, our kids need some form of a standard so we're competitive across the district, whether they're going into the workforce, whether they're going to college, to the military. Our kids also need to be competitive with other states, so there has to be some form of a standard to make sure our kids are competitive in the workforce or whichever way they're headed.
Thank you. We're getting a little tight on time. This question, let's just do 1 minute, if that's all right. Speaking of teachers, the school district has a long time unique relationship with the MVEA, the Mesa Valley Education Association. That is their collective bargaining group for the teachers. Is this a good or bad relationship? Does it need changes, improvements? How do you feel about that? Start with Austin.
From experience, I can tell you that you've talked to numerous numerous teachers who think this is a fantastic idea. They are working on the greater group and the greater whole of the district rather than, fighting every little detail for every little thing in the district. I can tell you that the teachers union is a good thing and a bad thing. The teachers union, though, they help the teachers with things that are going on in the classrooms, and they are there for support for the teachers if there are any issues arise. And I think that bargaining for the teachers in the classroom is collectively a good thing.
Will?
So having a teachers union, could be a good and bad thing, but it also it's almost like a conflict of interest. Am I willing to take money from a teachers union if I'm going against them? No, I'm not, because it's like I said, it's a conflict of interest. So a teachers union is only a good thing if every teacher's behind it. And unfortunately, in Grand Junction, not all of our teachers are behind the NVA or the teachers union. So it's one of those things that it's going to be good for us. You need to make sure that all of our teachers are standing behind it, and not just a few or a quarter. So we need to make sure we have something out there to where the teachers are standing there 100% behind us.
Thank you. Nick?
Yeah, I think contract negotiations are extremely important. I think that our teachers haven't been given a good deal within it. I think we need to step up and make sure that they're supported. I don't consider it negotiating against, I consider it negotiating with, because we need to have a better future for our teachers. And if they, as a group, choose to work together to negotiate that, I think we listen. And I think that we make sure that we get our salaries competitive, because they're still below state average by several percentage points. So we need to make sure that we help them out.
As a school board member, it would be important to me to make sure that we take care of our teachers, regardless of who we're dealing with and whose ideas they are. I think we have to come together and find out what's important to them, what they need, what they want. Wages are certainly something to be considered. And I think the school board should be, I don't know whether they have been or not to speak for anyone else, but moving forward, we absolutely should be looking to do everything that we can to allow our teachers to do the job that they want to do in the best way they can, and at the end of the day, provide for themselves a nice living and a great work environment. So if that means working with the teachers union to figure out what those things are, then that would be a negotiation I would enter into.
I think one of the things that has occurred is when you think and hear and speak about a union, you think of unions of days gone by. The teachers union basically is a group of individuals that take the conversations of all teachers and they speak in one voice when they are negotiating. I think that's one of the most important things that the teachers union does. What you have to also remember is that there are some individuals that are teachers that take advantage of what the union has done. And that's not a bad thing. They decide that they don't want to take full part in union activities, but they're willing to reap the benefits of a teachers union. I think the teachers union has a big role to play simply because it's just like Nick was saying. When you talk in terms of education and you talk in terms of lack of dollars paid to a teacher, there has to be one voice that the school board hears, that the community hears regarding teachers, and I think that's why there is importance to the teachers union.
Thank you. Trish?
Thank you. So I appreciate it, and I'm proud to be part of the board that just did increases to salaries for teachers this past year that got them up to state average as of 1 year ago. That's not perfect. Do we have more to do? Of course we do. My experience with MVEA, I really didn't know anything about unions, even though I'm an attorney. I'd never dealt with unions. I've gone through 2 seasons of negotiations with MVEA, and it's not just about negotiations for minutes in the classroom or minutes for planning or what their salaries are. MVEA is somebody who advocates for all of their staff, whether or not they're members of the union or not. I thought David put it quite nicely. They advance for everybody, not just their members. My experience with MVEA is, despite some national conversation about teacher unions, As a school board member, I have not felt pressured by MBEA at all. I felt they have brought well-studied items to the school board for negotiating on behalf of all. And I appreciate that moved us to increasing teacher salaries this past year. Separate from that, I think they do a lot of individual advocacy, which I think is a great thing for teachers.
Thank you. Andrea?
So, I think, like David said, you hear the word union, and I think it does leave somewhat of a bad taste in people's mouths. I think the intention of our local association is an intention of wanting to do what's best for the teachers and the students. My concern, just like what Will said, is it doesn't represent all teachers and all teachers' voices. There's even teachers I spoke to that are part of the union that just said they don't always represent what I think. And so I think there needs to be communication from a board standpoint of listening to what the union or the association brings, and then also making sure that we're listening to the other educators out there, because the association may say that they are representing them. However, just based on my conversations, that's not necessarily the case. And so again, as a board member, it's a matter of talking to anybody and everybody when it comes to our teachers to make sure that they all feel like their voice is being heard, and not just from one arena.
Thank you. Well, that gives us an hour, and if some of the members or candidates are willing to stay around, maybe you can ask some questions. I know there's members of the press here, but I want everybody to give the candidates a big hand. A lot of great answers today. Ballots go out around the 9th, and so they'll be in your hands within a week and a half. And then the final election day is November 2nd. Encourage your friends and family to vote. This is a low turnout election typically, so a lot of people, as I think Nick said, don't even know what's going on with this whole thing. So we hope we educated a few people tonight. I know we had problems with our Facebook thing tonight. There was a streaming problem, I think, with the internet. A lot of people took some video, so maybe we can post that on the webpage so people can see what happened tonight. Will?
If you have questions, go ahead and go. I don't have to leave.
You got a little time?
Yeah, let's go.
Oh, okay.
Let's do it.
Does anybody, I've got some more questions. Does anybody from the audience have a question they would like to ask the board or the candidates?
They're ready to go home.
I think we'll wrap it up. I think you guys did a great job, and we really appreciate you being here tonight. And as I said, if you want to hang around and anybody has questions for them, feel free. And please visit with the press.
Thank you so much.